Hi guys, and welcome back to the Caribbean Spot. In today's video, we are headed to the island of Grenada. Let's go. They called him a breath of fresh air, a reformer, a modern leader. But behind the polished speeches and tailored suits lies a different story. One of broken promises, power hoarding, and a corruption machine masked in new branding. This is not leadership. This is deception. And today, the mask comes off. Some even called him Morris. How dare you guys? But we can all see he ain't no Morris, and he will never be half the man Morris was. Morris's heart was for the people and their development, for the development of Grenada. And Dickon Mitchell is the opposite. He only cares about he, and according to the people of Grenada, he only cares about he and Andy. The deception of new leadership. When Dickon Mitchell burst onto the scene in 2022, Grenadians were desperate for change. He sold himself as the clean break, the modern voice, a man of law and logic. But within just days of taking office, Dickon Mitchell assigned himself 8 key ministries, including infrastructure, public utilities, national security, information, civil aviation, and disaster management. My source, Now Grenada, full list of cabinet ministers, June 30th, 2022. That's not leadership. That's a monopoly on power. And let's not forget, he's a lawyer. He knows exactly what he's doing. This wasn't ignorance, this was intention. And while the people struggle with rising costs, joblessness, and housing insecurity, what did he do? Gave his cabinet a $2,000 salary increase. 6 months later, handed them another $5,000. Tossed in $10,000 constituency allowance. Then threw in government-paid vehicles, all under the excuse of strengthening parliamentary representation. Source, Government of Grenada, 2025 budget estimate, public salary increases. Strengthening who? You're strengthening your hold, Dickon, not the country. And Grenadians voted for this. That's the sad part. But I understand. You're excused. He never said he would use the money to invest in the people. He invested in the political branding, not national building. Well, sir, your foolishness and lack of competency is very much on brand. Meanwhile, the youth unpaid, the Imanis sent home, teachers still begging for resources. Who is this government really working for? You're about to see exactly who. And it's not the people. Because while Grenadians were still clapping for change, Dickon Mitchell was already dismantling the very agencies designed to protect them. He didn't build a better system. He bulldozed the watchdog. Dismantling oversight. The death of the FIU. One of Dickon Mitchell's first acts in office wasn't about justice. It wasn't about reform. It was about clearing the path for unchecked power. And how do you do that? You eliminate the watchdog. The Financial Intelligence Unit, Grenada's only anti-corruption body, the agency tasked with investigating fraud, money laundering, and financial crimes, was quietly dismantled. They didn't announce it with press releases. They didn't debate it in Parliament. They just dissolved it. claiming they needed the officers elsewhere. Let's be clear. The FIU was the one agency with the authority to investigate illegal campaign financing, trace suspicious government contracts, audit ministers' bank accounts, monitor bribes and kickbacks, conduct investigations into serious financial crimes, including money laundering and terrorist financing, lead Grenada's national risk assessment using World Bank tools to analyze national vulnerabilities, to issue guidance to financial institutions on anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism protocols. And lastly, to cooperate with international agencies and foreign FIUs to track illicit financial flows. Its powers were grounded in the Financial Intelligence Unit Act and the Proceeds of Crime Act, two key pillars of Grenada's legal defense against financial crime. But what good is a law or an act if there is no manpower left to enforce it? Like, really? This government didn't just undermine the law, it stripped it of the very engine that made it work. The original FIU, the one with teeth, trained investigators, and international partnerships, was dissolved. What replaced it? You guys, a civilian group with no real law enforcement power. Really, Grenada. It lacks the teeth, independence, and law enforcement authority the real FIU had. The watchdog was killed. They replaced it with a poodle. Grenada lost its financial shield, and corruption rushed in like a flood. The man leading the so-called FIU today isn't a trained anti-corruption enforcer. He's a civilian lawyer. Sources confirm the FIU is now led by a civilian lawyer, not a career law enforcement officer with anti-money laundering AML or criminal investigative experience. You took that away, Dickon Mitchell. A lawyer heading a financial crime agency with no teeth, no enforcement power, no shield for Grenada's economy. Let's be clear. This wasn't incompetence. It was a blueprint. The FIU worked alongside the Royal Grenada Police Force and Customs to ensure Grenada wasn't used as a transit point or laundering hub. So when this government came in and dismantled it, that wasn't reform. It was removing the only agency capable of exposing what they plan to do next. And we must ask, what prompted the change? Why did the government believe civilians would do a better job than trained Royal Grenada Police Force officers? Like, really, answer that question, Government of Grenada. How are they combating financial crime without the law enforcement powers that the real FIU had? What followed speaks volumes. Bribes changing hands, checks cashed and returned, contractors being followed to the bank, and don't forget, 24.5 million in budgeted funds ballooning to 36 million with no roads, no homes, no answers. Grenada is now the Wild Wild West. The laws are being broken in broad daylight, and there's no sheriff in town. because the man who promised law and order eradicated the lawmen first. When you remove the watchdog, corruption doesn't just walk in, it kicks down the door. And when someone dared to stand up against it, he wasn't praised, he was punished. The price of integrity, the Jonathan LaCrette's firing. In any honest government, the man who exposes corruption is praised. But in the Dickon Mitchell's Grenada, he gets fired. Minister Jonathan LaCrette was the Minister of Youth and Sports, which oversees the National Lotteries Authority, NLA. Once LaCrette stepped into the role, he discovered troubling financial activity. The NLA chairman, William Batiste, was reportedly writing checks to himself, authorizing payments without board approval, and linked to insider procurement and rental schemes. LaCrette did what any honest leader should do. He fired the man, Mr. William Batiste. Mr. LaCrette handed Mr. William Batiste a dismissal letter with immediate effect. But the same day, LaCrette was summoned to the Prime Minister's office and told to reverse the termination. Yes, you heard that right. Dickon Mitchell ordered the reinstatement of a man accused of abusing public funds. So ask yourself, what Prime Minister defends a man caught misusing state money, unless it benefits him too? How many businesses would order HR to reinstate someone caught writing checks to themselves? What does that tell you? What does that tell us? It tells us Batiste was protected for a reason. And LaCrette was fired not for wrongdoing, but for doing the right thing. The official excuse? Loss of trust and confidence. That's what the Prime Minister said, as quoted in the local newspapers. But let's call it what it is. Trust was broken because LaCrette told the truth. Trust was broken because he removed corruption. He who justifies the wicked and condemns the righteous, both are an abomination to the Lord. Proverbs 17:15. Meanwhile, William Batiste, a known NDC loyalist, was untouched, still smiling. And for those of you who don't know who NDC is, that is the ruling party that Dickon Mitchell is in charge of in Grenada. I think there are probably like two parties or something, NNP and NDC. So yeah, backstory. Let's continue. Still smiling, still handing out medals at the national events, still seated among cabinet ministers, as if nothing happened, right? We just put big thieves to give out medals to our children. And this is a quote from Simon Says, Jenny Simon. So let's stop pretending. Dickon Mitchell didn't fire corruption. He fired accountability. Because for you to have a thief, William Batiste, who's writing checks to himself, handing out medals to young children, like at the national sporting event, what message are you sending to the youths? What message are you sending to Grenada? What message are you sending to the world? You can never be Morris. You're not even half of who Morris was, Dickon Mitchell. And with that one move, Dickon Mitchell sent a message to every public servant in Grenada. If you speak out, you're next. But this isn't 1995. This is a new Caribbean. We're not silent, we're not stupid, and we're not afraid. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Isaiah 5:20. This is just the beginning. Let's go. Follow me. If protecting corrupt insiders wasn't bad enough, what's even worse is where the money went while all of this was happening. Let's open the next chapter, the scandal at the National Lotteries Authority. The National Lotteries Authority, NLA, was created to support youth, sports, and national development. But under this administration, and with Dickon Mitchell's full knowledge, the NLA has become a hotbed of corruption, and no one was held accountable. Let's talk about what was exposed. According to Jenny Simons, Simon says, verified exposé outlines the following allegations against NLA chairman William Batiste. Issued checks to himself, oversaw $275,000 in spending on a park project with a $295,000 overrun. Sanctioned payments of over $200,000 with no board oversight. Used his own business, Wheels Stationery, to furnish the NLA. I don't know how that is possible. Allegedly collecting over $200,000 in furniture contracts. Allegedly directed NLA rental payments to a law firm in St. Andrew connected to Teddy St. Louis, now the chief of staff in the Prime Minister's office. I don't know what kind of scheme is going on in Grenada. Rent was being picked up and dropped off at Teddy St. Louis' law firm. That's what we were told. And I quote, the public, and I quote, Simon says. And yet, Batiste was rewarded, not removed. While Jonathan LaCrette, the one man who tried to stop it, was fired. Meanwhile, Batiste is still at the front line, smiling, laughing, giggling, doing his own thing. So where's the audits? Where is the police investigation? Oh, hold on, I got a good one. Where is FIU? All right, the FIU was dismantled. Now we have the civilian FIU. Are they looking into this? And this is not an isolated scandal. This is a pattern of abuse enabled from the top. LaCrette stood up and he got removed. Batiste stayed and he got protected. Could you believe that? A man who thieving from you. If you have a business and you know one of your employees stealing, would you keep them working with you? I mean, something have to be wrong right there, right? You're unfit to be Prime Minister. You could never be Morris. Move to the side. I'm upset over this. Like, how can you remove somebody who stood up for justice, for righteousness, for what is wrong? And the man who's writing checks to himself is still writing checks to himself. You're disappointed in the man who stood up, but you're not disappointed you didn't terminate the man who's writing checks to himself. We need the FIU back, and we need them to investigate you, Williams, and everybody in the NDC. All of you guys who started building big houses when before you had nothing. All of you have big mansions right now when before you had nothing. All of you taking flights right now like if you're taking bus or taxi when before you had nothing. Where did the money come from? How come all of a sudden all of you guys have, businesses and big mansions building and houses and everything else like a big come up, and you think the people stupid? We seeing what's going on. We seeing what's going on. LaCrette stood up, he got removed. Batiste stayed, he got protected. And the NLA, it's bleeding money. But worse, it's bleeding public trust. Ephesians 5:11 says, "Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them." That is my job. But the National Lotteries Authority wasn't the only place where the bleeding was happening. Because right next door, inside the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transportation, MIT, the scandal exploded into millions of missing dollars. Let's expose it. There's one ministry that keeps coming up every time money disappears in Grenada. The Ministry of Infrastructure and Transportation, MIT. And at the center of all this is Minister Andy Williams, the Prime Minister's right-hand man. The man Dickon Mitchell defended publicly, claiming he gave up his business to serve. But according to reports, that's not just a lie. It's a strategic cover-up. Hotspot went bankrupt, that is Andy Williams' business, before elections. He was under investigations by the Royal Grenada Police Force and Customs for fraud. There we go with the Prime Minister linking up with the fraudsters. And hold on, is he related to the Batiste guy? Okay. Anyway, let's proceed. He owed hundreds of thousands, and the NDC paid off his campaign debts. Okay, hold on. You fired Jonathan LaCrette because he stood up for the truth. And now you have a man who is your right-hand man that the public says that's the only person you care about. And you paid off all his debts. Wow. Now I see the connection. I truly do. And the NDC paid off his campaign debts. Then gave him control of cash he's never seen before. This, I quote, is from Simon Says. Her video is Corruption in Plain Sight. Check her out on YouTube. The budget bombshell. In the 2024 supplemental, Andy Williams' ministry received EC 24.5 million. He was supposed to 1. Rehabilitate roads across 6 parishes, clean up after the hurricane, and build 200 homes. But what happened? According to sources, according to Simon Says, no roads were completed, no homes were built, not the 200 homes. Millions were overspent with zero oversight. Now, isn't that crazy? He was given 24.5 million. By 2025 budget, the actuals showed he spent 36 million. That's $11.5 million over. Like, where did the money go? What happened? The government of Grenada is trusting a notorious fraudster. According to sources, this man was under investigations, right, for his wrongdoings. And you trust in this man with millions of dollars. You just paid off his debt. He owed money. Why is the Prime Minister of Grenada allowing these people to run Grenada to the ground? Why is the Prime Minister of Grenada putting his neck on a block for somebody like that and saying this man gave up his business to come and run to serve the people of Grenada? Well, if he truly serving the people of Grenada, give us accountability for the $36 million spent. Where are the homes? Show us. We want to see the paper trail. Where are the roads? What happened? You guys just taking money? This is your private bank account? This is just like the common thread throughout the Caribbean. Politicians using public funds like if it is they come up in life. I am sickened by you guys. And I'm more disappointed too that we as Caribbean people keep allowing these shady government officials to be in office for so long because we keep voting them in. And let's continue. And how did this money disappear? Well, based on sources, based on Simon Says, there's something horrifying going on inside of MIT, where we have contractors were given checks in their names. They were told to go cash them at the bank, then bring the money back to the ministry, sometimes given $5,000 to start the job and return the rest. It is just crazy. Then Simon Says, this is Simon Says YouTube platform. You can go check her out if you're Grenadian or just anyone else interested in Grenadian news. And I quote, "Imagine changing 2 checks totaling $45,000 and handing the full amount back to an MIT worker. No job started, just walk in, cash and return." And they're telling me that FIU is active in Grenada, that we have an active FIU, and all of this is going on. That FIU is not even investigating Andy Williams and that $36 million. You're not investigating the person in National Lottery Authority, but you have an active FIU. It is time for this corruption in the Caribbean to stop. Right now. You guys are hurting the country. You're hurting the future of the country. Like, what are you doing? So Jenny Simon Says on YouTube went on to say, she named names. She called Don Hosford, a worker inside MIT, allegedly running the collection. This isn't poor management, people. What is happening here is deceit. This is weights and measures of deceit. Exactly what the Bible warned us about. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. Proverbs 11:1. A ministry turned cash machine. That's what it seems like to us right now, right? And according to sources. So Simon Says, ran by Jenny Simon, which is a YouTube platform named Simon Says. You can go check it out. The video that she did stated, 1, contractors were given $20,000 checks for $10,000 jobs, asked to take $5,000 and return $15,000. Workers followed contractors to the bank to monitor withdrawals. Contractors sometimes given tips in envelopes to stay silent. Meanwhile, Andy Williams was allegedly gifted $100,000 cash and $15,000 in vehicle repairs by one contractor. This is crazy. Oversaw projects like Cliff Road, True Blue Road that collapsed within weeks, is now using the government court facility to sell salt fish, cheese, and soda on weekends. Simon Says, this isn't just public service, this is public insult. And I have to agree, it is public insult. And where is the investigation? Where are the receipts? Where is the financial intelligence unit? The Prime Minister dismantled the FIU, and Grenada is just the wild, wild west right now. Andy's ministry is the epicenter of the financial earthquake shaking Grenada. And the Prime Minister still defending him. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the clear-sighted and subverts the cause of the righteous. Exodus 23:3. FIU, I have no idea why you're turning a blind eye, but you also need to be investigated thoroughly. This is an oversight. This is intentional, strategic, embedded corruption. That's what it is. And this government, it didn't just enable it, it bankrolled it. But the Ministry of Infrastructure was just the beginning. When you step back and look at the full picture, from the dismantling of the FIU to the firing of honest voices, to the unchecked millions bleeding through the system, it becomes crystal clear. This isn't isolated corruption. This is organized betrayal. And the man at the top isn't clearing it up. He's protecting it. Now, let's call it what it really is. This is not leadership. This is looting. Let's stop pretending this is a government doing its best. This is not leadership. This is a regime, one that came into power on promises of transformation and instead turned Grenada into a cash and carry state. One of the first signs, the quiet assassination of the FIU. Then, Jonathan LaCrette gets fired for acting with integrity. Andy Williams gets promoted despite active corruption investigations. Millions disappear from MIT with no homes, no roads, and no explanation. And you're telling me FIU is in charge and they're doing their stuff? Who handpicked the civilian FIU and put them in place? William Baptiste remains seated, honored at state events after writing checks to himself. And through it all, the Prime Minister watches, defends, and enables. We are the most transparent government in my lifetime. That's his own words. Public statement. He made that. Dickon Mitchell, public statement. But transparency isn't saying you're clean while covering for those who are dirty. You can't call yourself transparent while you refuse to reinstate the FIU. Well, you have a civilian FIU, kind of like a front, kind of like that. Fire the one honest minister you had. Make excuses when public contracts turn into personal ATM machines. Woe to those who acquit the guilty for a bribe and deprive the innocent of justice. Isaiah 5:23. Let's be real. This is not love for country. This is pillaging the nation under a banner of patriotism. And as Jenny Simon boldly put it, they came to serve themselves, their friends, and their families, not Grenada. And this is Jenny Simon, Simon Says YouTube platform. Go check her out. She speaks the truth. The people are seeing through it. Grenadians are watching. The diaspora is watching. The Caribbean is watching. You moved beyond empty speeches and stage photo ops. Leadership is not what you say in Parliament. It's what you protect in secret. And right now, Dickon Mitchell is protecting the corrupt. But Grenada, it gets worse. When leaders betray the people, when they silence integrity, and when they dismantle every safeguard meant to protect the nation, it's not just incompetence, it raises serious questions about intention. And the Prime Minister's actions or inactions have created a system where corruption could thrive unchecked. So now it's time for the final rebuke. This is not about party. This is not about red, green, yellow, pink, purple. You get it? This is about a prime minister who promised to serve the people, but instead oversaw betrayal, lies, and wiped out every ounce of accountability. He fired the righteous, protected the corrupt, and dismantled every institution that could hold him and his party and his affiliates accountable. You want to talk about loss of trust? Grenada has lost trust in you, Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell. You didn't clean house. You crowned the cockroaches. Again, you did not clean house, but instead you crowned, put a crown on their head, the cockroaches. You didn't build transparency. You bulldozed the truth and laid red carpet over corruption. He who remains stiff-necked after many rebukes will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. Proverbs 29:1. You say you are modernizing Grenada, but what are we becoming? A nation where overspending is normalized, bribes are disguised as constituency projects, checks go out and come back in envelopes, FIU is shut down. Well, hold on. We have a civilian FIU in place. We don't really know what they're doing because corruption going on and like they turning the other way. The man who exposed it is fired, and the man accused of it sits at state ceremonies like a national hero. Isn't that sad? Grenadians are not fools. They know the patterns. They see the power plays, and they reject the manipulation. This is a call to Grenada. To every public servant, stand for what's right, or be remembered for what you let happen. To every Christian, you cannot defend righteousness and stay silent while corruption destroys your nation. And that is for the entire Caribbean. To every journalist, every voter, every pastor, every diaspora voice, this is the moment. History is watching. Heaven is recording. And the word of God says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Galatians 6:7. Grenada, the veil is lifted. The evidence is on the table. And the people are no longer asleep. This expose isn't the end. It's the beginning. And the storm that's coming isn't political. It's divine. Because when a nation is betrayed at the highest level and the truth is mocked, God raises up voices, God exposes darkness, and God brings justice. The Lord is known by his acts of justice. The wicked are ensnared by the works of their own hands. Psalm 9:16. To every Grenadian listening to the sound of this, watching this, let this be the year you open your eyes, find your voice, and fight for your nation. Because the silence is not neutrality, it's consent. And we will not consent to corruption disguised as competence. Let me ask you, Grenada, are you really content with this level of representation? A prime minister who dismantled the FIU, removing the very tool meant to protect Grenada from financial abuse. Fired one minister who dared to stop corruption, rewarded a man under investigation, and drung in millions of dollars in debt, Andy Williams. oversaw a $500,000 weld work project on the Carnage for the 50th independence, and it's already gone. $500,000. You guys are you comfortable with these things? You think this is progress? You're that low that you can't see better for yourself? Where is the accountability? Who got the kickbacks? Why are the other ministers so silent? Hold on. I hear a lot of them building houses. They have big houses. They have businesses. They put businesses in other people's name. You guys need to stand up. What is a man to gain the world and lose his soul? The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke. That is a quote from Edmund Burke. And I'm going to quote the Bible. What is a man to gain the world and lose your soul? That you prefer to take the bribes, take the little money over here. You know you're drawing yourself closer and closer to hell when you're doing these things? When you're compromising yourself like that? When you're not living in truth and you're not living righteous? Weren't you the godly nation years ago who preached God is a Grenadian? Then what has happened to you, Grenada? You accepting trash and calling it leadership. You say you love your country, Mr. Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, but you are causing great destruction. And Grenadians, you say you love your country, but you are watching what's happening to it and doing nothing. Are you watching, Grenada? The segregation growing in plain sight. Mind you, it didn't start with his party, right? That is something throughout the Caribbean politicians have used. Segregation, this political party, green and pink and blue and purple, to segregate the people, have the people fighting against each other. Wake up, Caribbean. Wake up, Grenada. Are you watching, Grenada? The wasteful spending while you remain jobless, while your youth remain jobless. Are you watching? You were so mesmerized, bewitched by your 50th anniversary that you didn't have realized the lights on a Carnage cost you $500,000. One question, do you still have those lights up? What else have they wasted money on? Another minister of wasteful finance. Wasteful. Can't even budget to save their lives. But they're running a country and trying to budget. A matter of fact, they ain't trying to budget, you know. I agree with every whisper on the island of Grenada. They're there just for themselves. That's it. Not for you. Are you watching, Grenada? The constant excuse making while accountability disappears. And let them come with a rebuttal. Where's the FIU? Why are they not investigating these things? Why are they not investigating those road projects that can't finish? Why are they not investigating those contractors who are getting the kickbacks in the country? Why did you, Grenada taxpayers, pay $500,000 for some lights around the Carnage area that I'm sure any other person could have charged probably like a $10,000 to do that? You understand? Get some stuff and just like nail it up or whatever they do. I'm not a welding person, right? That's not my field. But I'm sure anybody could do that little work right there, right? Wasteful, wasting the money, and you Grenadians accept that as progress. How would you feel if someone took control of your bank account and started spending your money however they wanted, with no permission, no accountability? Would you clap and say they're doing a good job? No. Well, that's exactly what's happening under this government. You want to talk about leadership? I am sure that Morris Bishop didn't see color. He didn't chase likes, fame, or clout. He chased nation building, not party loyalty. But today, You have a Minister of Finance, aka Wasteful Finance, who is also your Prime Minister, Wasteful Prime Minister, making decisions that Morris would never tolerate. This is not progress. This is regression, wearing designer suits. I don't really know if it's designer suits. I'm just saying based on the images that I saw. It sounds good. Maybe not. So I ask you, Grenada and the Caribbean, when did we stop demanding proof before praise? When did we normalize politicians who get into power, flash a few smiles, and rob countries blind while hiding behind party slogans? When did we stop asking, where did the money go? You, the people of Grenada, are not foolish. You have discernment. You can read between the lines very well. And you must demand more than performance. Who has bewitched you? Galatians 3:1. From this day forward, let no politician return to office without a full audit of their bank accounts before and after service. That's why we need a FIU. A review of every associate tied to government funds. A commitment to reinstate the real FIU, and a national demand to stop using Grenada as a personal payday. Youths can't get scholarship. You have to be friends with somebody who knows somebody. Your mother and father have to have a certain name. You can't get nothing if you didn't vote for this party or this party. Like, you Caribbean people are just really ridiculous. What era are we living in? You have the power. You elect these people in there. They work for you. You treat them like gods. They're not. If $500,000 went into lights and welding that are already gone, and a bankrupt businessman is managing millions in infrastructure funds, well, if his business went bankrupt and everything else, he was corrupt and whatever else, right, on the investigations, that tells you he's not good at budgeting. That tells you there's a lot of stuff there that we need to investigate further, and we shall. Andy Williams, you're up next. And the one man who tried to clean it up was fired. Then the question is not whether corruption exists. It's whether we will keep tolerating it. May God have mercy on every soul who stood in the way of justice and called it governance. It's time to rise up, Grenada. You deserve better. And so do your children's children. Stop electing people who, within months of taking office, start building their big houses and hiding businesses under friends and drivers' names. You need real governance. You need true transparency. And all you've been getting is empty talk and politicians playing on your emotions just to grab your vote. Watch all of them. Hold them accountable. Enough is enough. I stand here on my own. I am not affiliated with any party. I owe no man any favor. I am sent to tell you, Grenada, it's time to break the chains of bewitchment over your nation. The time for awakening is now. Okay guys, this is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments below. I will be reading all the comments, and if you come at me sideways, I'm going to correct you in love. It is time for the Caribbean to stand up. It is time for us to demand truth. It is time for us to demand better for ourselves and for the future generations. See you on the next video. Bye.